It also helps them guide their, the decision-making process and future planning. My tip for parents in that, though, is don't go down too hard on the future planning part. Yes, we need to plan a bit for our futures, but to keep on pressuring kids to do that when there's so much else that's going on in there.
And again, they're focused on the short term, right?
That's
like
right.
the long term is more challenging for them to think about and can be very overwhelming too.
Absolutely. Without this clear identity, kids may feel, or teens may feel lost, just trying to find their way. And that's often when they do some of these behaviors or join kids that are exhibiting more risky behaviors. They may be easily influenced. And I think that even with some of the identity formation, but especially if they haven't been able to formulate it, anxiety and depression comes in. I don't want to give the message that if we help our kids formulate their identity, or that they're not going to get anxiety or depression, because there's a lot of other factors, right? And then we have the role of independence, and that's a big one, because they're kind of in this trying to push their independence. I know, Jade, that we've talked about clients that you've had during supervision times and stuff like that, and I know that because you work with so many teens, trying to install this role. So do you have any information that you can give on the role?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the role of independence is, as you said, a pretty big one, and I think this is where we can see a lot of that challenge in that parent-child dynamic, because we want to find that balance of encouraging the autonomy, the independence, with guidance and support from the parents, right? And it can be a challenging time for parents as well, because they're seeing their kids maybe make some mistakes or put them in, difficult situations, but they have to kind of learn and understand those natural consequences. And sometimes I say they have to figure out what not to do before they figure out what to do.
That's right.
And so I think like independence, the role of independence, like you said, kind of plays into decision making a little bit, right? In terms of being able to become self-reliant, right? So being able to trust ourselves, reduce that self-doubt, gain more confidence, build that self-esteem. I also think another big role for independence is some of those life skills. So like being able to manage our time, to be able to be organized, like some of those pieces that are going to carry forward and help us as adults.
Absolutely.
And then I think another piece as well, you kind of touched on this, but emotion regulation, right? Is being able to manage our emotions independently, whatever those might be,
For
right?
sure.
Because parents can be there again as guidance and support, but we don't necessarily want them to be the problem solvers or to come in and kind of, tell us how to sort through that emotion. So I think when we think about that role of independence, yeah, I would say like the decision making, the life skills, the emotion regulation are some of those key pieces. And then we also talk about too, like, I think another piece with the independence, and again, balancing with that parent support, is having those clear expectations, those clear kind of boundaries, and being able to kind of separate themselves a little bit from those parental expectations while knowing kind of what they are and what the boundaries are, and being consistent with that as the adults in their life, right? So being consistent with whatever those expectations and boundaries are. And again, I think kind of the difference between supporting and problem solving when it comes to navigating any of those challenges, and with that independence, right? So being able to support them, whether we agree with their choice or not, versus trying to come in and problem solve that for them.
Absolutely. I often say to adult clients that I'm seeing, I think one of the hardest things about being a parent, if we're trying to help them develop this independence, is knowing that they're going to get hurt. Obviously not physically, sometimes maybe, but not like catastrophically, right? We're not going to allow that. But knowing that they're going to get hurt, watching and not stopping it, as probably, because natural consequences, number one, but we learn from that, and they have to experience some of these things. But it's very easy to be that bubble wrap. It's very easy to jump in, but they're not going to gain those skills. And even when our kids grow up, right, and as adults, and you watch some decisions that they're making, having to stand back and let them do it. Your instinct as a parent is to be the buffer. They're not going to gain the independence.
Yeah, often like when I'm talking to parents about that is like, because parents again have been through it, so they feel like they can kind of impart their wisdom on them and like help them to make those decisions and like lead them in the right path. But it's always kind of coming back to like, they do have to make their own mistakes. They do have to make those decisions and kind of see how it, you know, plays out, kind of thing. So
for sure.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, when you feel what your kids feel times a million, that makes it really hard, because you know what, or you bring in your own childhood experiences, and that makes it even harder, but you have to let them do it. And sometimes I have parents say to me, you know, well, they're off at school or they're on their own and they don't talk to me every day, or, you know, they'll just call me to check in now and then, or they'll just run something by me. And I'm like, okay, right? That means you did a good job, because that means your child's independent and they don't need to rely on you for everything. And I think that as parents, our job is to, you know, raise our kids to be productive members of society when we launch them and be able to make it on their own. They always come back for help at some point, and that's okay. You know, that's part of being a parent too.